WrestleMania 43 is 10 months away, but what is the match card going to look like? Let's speculate. I'm Brandon, this is Wrestling Talk, and while everyone is predicting what the SummerSlam match card is going to look like, I want to push things out a little bit further. I want to see what Saudi Mania is going to look like. Because let's be honest, a lot of matches that people think are going to happen at SummerSlam are probably going to happen at WrestleMania instead. And on the flip side, a lot of matches that people think WWE is going to hold off on until WrestleMania, they might just pull the trigger on at SummerSlam. And also, because we're 10 months out, I think it is a really fun opportunity to just make some wild predictions for WrestleMania right now, and then come April of next year, we can look back on this video and just realize how right I was. Now, typically for WrestleMania, there's about 7 matches per night, but because we're so far out, I'm going to be predicting 8 matches per night, just because you never know what's going to happen with injuries and debuts and people getting re-signed or released. So for now, I'm predicting 16 matches total, even though that is not at all what we're gonna get. So without further ado, let's get started. And be sure to let me know what matches you want to see at WrestleMania next year down below. Opening night 1, I have a big marquee match that also directly relates to the main event of night 1 as well. More on that in a minute. But anyway, opening the show, I have Obafemi versus Braun Breaker, in what is essentially a match to determine who is going to lead WWE into the future. Obafemi is on an absolute roll right now, Braun Breaker not so much, but I do still think WWE has big plans for Braun Breaker. I do think come WrestleMania next year, he's going to have a big marquee match. I don't think he's still going to be feuding with Seth Rollins, so come WrestleMania, I think Braun Breaker needs a big marquee match, and I think Obafemi is the perfect opponent. This past Royal Rumble, the two of them entered at number 1 and number 2, and Obafemi eliminated Braun Breaker right away due to interference. So I do think that's WWE planting the seed for this match at some point. The only question is, will this match be for the World Heavyweight Championship or not? So I'm just going to do some skipping around here by also telling you what I think the Night 1 main event is going to be, because it directly relates to this match. And in the main event of Night 1, I have Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. This was supposed to be a main event at this past year's WrestleMania, but due to Seth Rollins' injury at Crown Jewel, things got mixed up and plans had to change. A lot of people thought we were going to get Roman versus Seth at SummerSlam, but Seth lost the King of the Ring tournament right away, which tells me WWE is holding off on that match. And given that they originally wanted it to be at WrestleMania this year, I think they're definitely going to want to make it happen at WrestleMania next year. Again, similar to Oba versus Braun though, the only question is, will it be for a title? So when I look at these two matches, here's my rationale for them happening. Braun versus Seth, I don't think is going to go till next year's WrestleMania. As I already said, Roman versus Seth, I think WWE is specifically holding off for Mania. So then it comes down to Roman versus Oba. Is WWE going to do that match at WrestleMania, or are they going to do it earlier at SummerSlam? At the time of recording, Obafemi is still in the King of the Ring tournament. Maybe Brock Lesnar screws him over so he loses, but honestly, I don't see that happening. I actually think it makes more sense for Obafemi to win the King of the Ring tournament, challenge Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, and then retire Brock Lesnar at some point between then. Whether that's at the Saturday night's main event in Madison Square Garden or night 1 of SummerSlam. Oba retires Brock night 1 and then he beats Roman Reigns night 2. Honestly, I think that is a very real possibility, but even if this all doesn't go down at SummerSlam, I don't think WWE is gonna wait an entire year to crown Obafemi the World Heavyweight Champion. And also, I don't know if I see Roman holding it that long. Honestly, I see Oba winning King of the Ring, challenging Roman at SummerSlam. The only question is who wins that match. If Oba wins, I think he is holding that title all the way till WrestleMania next year, meaning Oba versus Braun is going to be for the world title. However, if Roman retains instead due to interference or he just beats Oba clean, then I think Roman holds it till next year's WrestleMania as well and defends it against Seth Rollins. I do not think The Rock is on the table at all. I don't think he's going to be returning for Saudi Mania. I also don't think Roman versus Oba is going to be held off until WrestleMania. I feel like you do that match at SummerSlam no matter who wins. And keep in mind, Roman versus Seth is a match that WWE will probably want to do before Roman retires, or at least goes to that Undertaker once a year schedule. So I do feel like this upcoming WrestleMania is the opportunity to do that. If I had to guess, I would assume that Oba versus Braun is for the World Heavyweight Championship. I think Oba beats Roman at SummerSlam, holds it until WrestleMania, Braun wins the Rumble, or the Elimination Chamber, but I think the Rumble Rumble makes more sense given his performance at it last year. And then in the main event of night 1, you can build a Roman versus Seth one-on-one match with nothing on the line. You can involve the Bloodline in it too now that Roman is reassembling them. I just think that Roman versus Seth is a WrestleMania main event that needs to happen. I feel like it's going to happen this upcoming year, barring any injuries. I think Roman versus Oba is more likely going to happen at SummerSlam instead. So I think opening night 1, you're going to get Oba versus Braun. Main eventing night 1, Roman versus Seth. But now let's look at the other matches for night 1. For the men's tag team championships, I have the Usos versus the Street Profits. This is a match that fans have been predicting ever since Rey Fenix and Penta signed with WWE, and at this point, I think now is the time to do it. However, I don't think it should just be for the World Tag Team Championships. I think it should be for both. That's right, I am talking a title unification match, because the men's tag scene has basically been in limbo since WrestleMania 40, where they split the titles. There has never been a moment where both sets of men's tag titles have been in good standing, because frankly, I don't think WWE has the capacity to properly book two separate men's tag divisions. I think they should just do what they're already doing really well with the women's tag division. One set of titles, one set of champions that bounce between brands. I think the men's tag division would be way better off if you just unify the belts. So here's how I see this playing out. I think at some point soon, the Street Profits beat the Vision for the tag titles, but then at some point before Mania, the Usos beat the Street Profits. Over on SmackDown, at some point, I think The Miz and Kit Wilson are going to get those tag titles. They can start feuding with Rey Fenix, and then at some point, Rey Fenix says he's going to call in some backup to help him face them. And who does he call but his brother Penta? At some point before next year's Mania, I think Penta will lose the IC title and then move over to SmackDown to help his brother win the WWE Tag Team Championships. Once that happens, you're going to have the Usos as one set of champions and the Lucha Bros as another. And now you can book the ultimate tag team title match for WrestleMania. This is a dream match that we've been wanting to see for a while. I do feel like the Usos are slowly leaning into becoming heels again. The Lucha Bros are obviously going to be baby faces. I think you do this match at WrestleMania, the Lucha Bros win, and then they become the unified tag team champions. If you wanted to, you could add other tag teams into the mix, but I don't think this is the place for that. I think you just need Usos versus the Lucha Bros, but I do see Jacob Fatu maybe getting involved on behalf of the Usos. Maybe Jey Uso wants Jacob Fatu to cheat for him, Jacob declines. That causes the Usos to lose, and then after WrestleMania next year, you can do a Jey versus Jacob feud. I should say I don't have a match booked for Jacob Fatu at next year's Mania, just given his new role as the Bloodline Enforcer. So I think this tag match, as well as Roman versus Seth, would be where Jacob gets involved. Moving on to the women's IC title currently held by Sol Ruca, I think come WrestleMania next year, we're gonna get a ladder match. Very similar to what we got with the men's IC title this past year. I think there are so many talented women superstars circling the IC title, and I think all of them would work great in a ladder match. I'm one of those guys who thinks we need a ladder match at every WrestleMania, so this year I think the women's IC division is the best suited for it. Who do I have in this match? Obviously Sol Ruca and Lyra Valkyria. Sol is probably gonna walk in as the IC champion. Lyra, I do think, is gonna lean a bit more heel soon, and I think the two of them are perfect for a ladder match. I also think Bayley is going to be in this match as well. I don't see her partnership with Lyra lasting until next year's Mania, but while I would love to book a Bayley versus Lyra singles match, frankly, I don't think that's big enough for WrestleMania, at least in TKO's eyes. So instead, I think you tell that story between Bayley and Lyra within this ladder match. Maybe the two of them split up beforehand, so in this match, they're gunning for each other and they cost each other the win. For the next participant in this match, I'm going to go with Julia, who I can absolutely see being drafted over to Monday Night Raw at some point within the next year. She already ended her partnership with Kiana James. I don't know what else there is to do with Julia on SmackDown right now, given how she's already had a ton of matches with people on that roster. So I think the best thing to do now that she is a babyface is just move her over to Raw, clean slate. And again, once she does, I think she is a perfect fit for this match. For the next participant, I actually think it's going to be a returning Asuka. Asuka has recently taken a break from WWE, but she's made it clear that she's not retired and she's not moving to a different company. I honestly just think Asuka is taking a break, as well as stepping back to more of a part-time schedule, similar to what AJ Lee or Brock Lesnar do. So because of that, I do think Asuka is still going to wrestle. It's just going to be for the big marquee events, and I think WrestleMania is obviously one of those. So I actually think Asuka could return and participate in this ladder match. It would be a big pop. So I actually think Asuka could return before WrestleMania, maybe at the Rumble, and she would also be a perfect fit for this match. I could see her and Julia having some awesome moments between each other. And for the final participant in this match, I'm going with another returning superstar, Naomi. A lot of people think Naomi is going to return to win the Rumble, and I did think about that, but I couldn't quite think of the babyface opponent that she would face for the world title at WrestleMania. But I definitely think Naomi will be back for next year's WrestleMania because I think she's already had her kid. So just for her first Mania back, I think she returns at the Rumble and instantly gets involved in the IC title division, feuding with Sol Ruca, Lyra Valkyria, Bayley, and then come Mania, she's a part of this ladder match and is basically the comedic relief. I think this is an awesome ladder match to have. From an in-ring standpoint, I think it could steal the show, and I also think there's a lot of story beats you could tell within the match. But at the end of the day, I do feel like Sol Ruca would just retain. Let's talk about the men's IC title currently held by Penta. To me, when I look at the IC title, there are 3 contenders who I feel like might be in the match at next year's Mania, and those are Javon Evans, Logan Paul, and Joe Hendry. Here's where I'm coming from with this. WWE was teasing a feud between Logan Paul and Joe Hendry, but then Logan Paul got injured and he's probably going to be out for a remainder of the year. He might return at Survivor Series, although it's more likely he probably just returns at the Rumble instead. Once he returns, I think he is absolutely going to be going after Joe Hendry for making fun of him with his Fire Logan Paul song. And because both Logan and Joe Hendry are such big names, I can absolutely see that singles match be booked for WrestleMania, absolutely for the IC title as well. I could totally see Joe Hendry getting his hands on that title, and then you do Logan Paul versus Joe Hendry. However, I cannot in good conscience leave Javon Evans out of the picture. So honestly, I do feel like he would get involved here too, and then it becomes a triple threat. However, if you're asking me the match I really want to see, it's Logan Paul versus Javon Evans one-on-one. Don't get me wrong, I really like Joe Hendry, and from a marquee standpoint, WWE probably sees Joe Hendry as a bigger star than Javon Evans because of all of his viral moments and songs. But when it comes to an in-ring match at WrestleMania, I want to see Logan versus Javon Evans. So if you're asking me what I think is going to happen, I think it's going to be Logan Paul versus Joe Hendry. But what I want to happen is Logan Paul versus Javon Evans. I don't really want to see a triple threat here. And in terms of who wins, obviously Javon Evans. Next up, I have the retirement match of Rey Mysterio. And no, I do not have him facing Gunther. Because let's be honest, the only person who can retire Rey Mysterio is Dom Mysterio. I think Rey is getting very close to retirement, even though he doesn't look it. He can still absolutely go in the ring. But come WrestleMania next year, just to make it that much more special, I think WWE might make that the location for his retirement match. I think come WrestleMania next year, you can do Dom versus Rey, mask versus hair. And even though a bunch of fans may think it's going to result in Rey shaving Dom's head, the actual result is Dom retiring his father. I definitely think this match is going to happen, and I definitely think WrestleMania is where it should happen. Next up, I have a women's triple threat with no title on the line. Currently, Liv Morgan is the women's world champion. I don't see her holding that until next year's Mania. Mainly because since Mania, WWE has done nothing with her. So at some point, I think Liv is going to lose that title to either Stephanie Vaquer, Becky Lynch, Roxanne Perez, Raquel Rodriguez, but even if she loses it to Roxanne or Raquel, I don't think either of them are going to hold the title until Mania. If I had to predict things, I think Liv maybe loses to like Roxanne Perez, who kicks her out of the Judgment Day. But then Roxanne Perez loses to someone else before Mania. More on that in a bit. And then after that, you have a Judgment Day Civil War, no title on the line, Liv Morgan, Roxanne Perez, and I actually think Raquel Rodriguez is going to get involved as well. So I think come Mania, we are going to get Liv Morgan versus Roxanne Perez versus Raquel Rodriguez. I feel like Liv versus Roxanne one-on-one is going to happen before Mania. I also think Liv versus Raquel one-on-one is going to happen before Mania. And while you could just have Raquel take Roxanne's side, I actually think it's more interesting if you just have a situation where nobody is on anyone's side and they all just hate each other. And I think it's really cool to have a women's triple threat at WrestleMania with no title on the line. Very similar to Punk, Roman, and Seth at last year's Mania. So I got Liv Morgan versus Roxanne Perez versus Raquel Rodriguez, basically to determine who leads the Judgment Day. I think this would be an awesome match, and I think Roxanne should definitely get the win. And now we get to the WWE Women's Championship match, currently held by Rhea Ripley. Between now and then, I think she's going to face people like Jacy Jayne, Lash Legend, maybe Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair. And honestly, even if Rhea loses to one of those people, I think she's just going to win the title back before Mania. So come Mania, you're going to have Rhea walking in as champion, and who is going to win either the Rumble or Chamber to challenge her? None other than her bestie, Io Sky. Given all of the women currently on the WWE roster who aren't injured or off TV, this is the biggest match you could do, especially given all of their history at WrestleMania 41 and Evolution and SummerSlam, and them forming the tag team of Rio directly after winning the titles, and then Io Sky helping Rio win the world title off of Jade Cargill at this past Mania. There is a plethora of history between Rhea and Io, and also Rhea has never been able to beat Io. That is a big story that you can absolutely tell in a main event of WrestleMania, honestly. But because it's TKO, let's be honest, they're probably not going to do that. So I see Rhea versus Io as the co-main event of night one. Roman versus Seth is going to be the main event, but it's not going to be for a title. Now, obviously, I would love for Io Sky to win the Rumble to challenge Rhea, but I don't see that happening. Because from a story standpoint, I actually think it makes more sense for Io to lose the Rumble, have whoever wins that challenge the champion on Raw, and then Io wins the Elimination Chamber and is basically forced to challenge Rhea instead. To me, that makes for more interesting drama rather than Io wins the Rumble and then deliberately chooses Rhea. I like the idea that the two of them don't really want to face each other, but given the circumstances, they have to. So I think Io Sky wins the Elimination Chamber, challenges Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, and actually, I think this might be where Rhea finally beats Io. Or not, who knows. Moving on to night 2, opening the show is going to be the title match for the Women's World Championship. Currently it's held by Liv Morgan, but as previously stated, I don't think she's going to hold it all the way until Mania next year. I honestly think she's going to lose it to either Roxanne Perez or Raquel Rodriguez, but I don't think either of them are going to hold it until Mania either. Because my match opening night 2 is going to be Becky Lynch versus Stephanie Vaquer for the Women's World Championship. Becky lost the IC title to Sol Ruca, and it doesn't feel like WWE is going to have her go after it again. So to me, that means that Becky Lynch is officially done with the mid-card division on Raw. And given the good work she's been doing, and given how long it's been since she's been in the world title scene, I feel like come Mania next year, Becky Lynch will be competing for the Women's World Championship. So once Liv Morgan loses to either Roxanne or Raquel, who are probably going to go babyface to turn on Liv, I think one of them will hold the title between SummerSlam and let's say the Royal Rumble, and somewhere in between that time, Becky Lynch is going to beat them for the title. That way, Becky Lynch, your bigger star, is holding the championship leading into Mania, and who is going to win the Rumble to challenge her? I got Stephanie Vaquer. I don't necessarily see Stephanie winning the title back from Liv Morgan, but I also don't think Stephanie is just going to go away from the world title scene. WWE books her as a top talent, and I feel like they're going to want to make up for the lackluster Mania match this past year. I thought that Liv versus Stephanie could have been great, but the match ended up kind of sucking. I do think we're going to see a rematch between them, most likely at SummerSlam, but I don't think Stephanie is going to win. I think there's going to be some other cheating involved and she's going to lose. So then after that, I think you keep her away from the title for a while, and then going into Mania season, I think she's the perfect candidate to win the Rumble. I think the crowd would get behind it. I think it would be a big moment for her, and Becky Lynch versus Stephanie Vaquer would not only cook from an in-ring perspective, I think the story would be really compelling, and this would be a true feud to put over Stephanie Vaquer because the feud with Liv Morgan wasn't that. So yeah, I think Becky Lynch is definitely going to be competing for the Women's World title at WrestleMania, and I think Stephanie Vaquer is the perfect opponent for her to face. Moving on to the Women's Tag Team Championships, currently held by Brie Bella and Paige. I do not think they are going to hold on to the titles until WrestleMania. I feel like at some point they're going to lose them, and once that happens, I feel like Nikki Bella is going to return from injury, team up with Brie Bella, and they're going to win the tag team titles again. According to Nikki Bella, she only has until the end of 2026 on her WWE contract, meaning that this is essentially a retirement run for the Bellas, but but given the fact that Nikki Bella has been injured for a majority of that, I could absolutely see her extending that contract at least until WrestleMania next year. That way both Nikki and Brie can have one final WrestleMania match that they're both in before calling it a day. So actually, I think this is going to be the retirement match for the Bellas. I think they walk in as the women's tag team champions, and then it comes down to who are they going to face, who are they going to put over in their last match. And I think their opponents are going to be Tiffany Stratton and Chelsea Green. WWE has been teasing a partnership between them for a few months now. They've had a few tag matches already. I feel like once Tiffany loses the US title, she will team up with Chelsea Green and they will go after the tag team titles at WrestleMania. And honestly, this match makes so much sense. Tiffany Stratton has said that she would love to face Nikki Bella at WrestleMania, and Chelsea Green has always talked about the respect she has for the Bella sisters and the work they did for the women's division with Total Divas. When you look at Chelsea and Tiffany, they feel very Divas era coded anyway, so I actually think this is a perfect match for the Bella Twins. Now, if you want to add more teams to this match to make it a fatal 4-way, I do have a couple of options. One is the tag team of AJ Lee and Paige. I would love to see WWE run back the WrestleMania 31 match, AJ and Paige versus the Bellas. However, if you just do that match at WrestleMania, you're not really putting over the next generation. And also, I think it's very likely that AJ Lee does not compete at Saudi Mania because it's in Saudi Arabia. Think about it, she could have competed in this past year's Royal Rumble, which was also in Saudi Arabia, but she didn't. She just showed up on a following episode of Raw with CM Punk like nothing happened, and that is totally fine and understandable why AJ Lee wouldn't want to compete in Saudi Arabia. So honestly, I think it's more likely that she's just not on the card for Mania next year. Hell, maybe she doesn't even return to WWE until after next year's Mania. However, if things change like they did with CM Punk, who we also thought would never go to Saudi Arabia, I think AJ teaming with Paige and entering this match would be a perfect fit. And then the last team I have is a bit of a makeshift one, and that is Blake Monroe and Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace is doing a whole lot of nothing right now on SmackDown, so I think her and Blake Monroe would make a good pairing. Blake Monroe is the brains, Jordynne Grace is the bronze. I think Jordynne Grace goes heel, joins Blake Monroe. I think this is a tag team that makes sense. And when you look at all four of these tag teams, again, it feels very Divas era coded. So I think both are a possibility, but I feel like the more traditional 2-on-2 tag match is the way to go, especially if this is where the Bellas end up retiring. Moving on to the men's US title, I don't really have the women's US title on this card. I have a fatal 4-way. I got Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov versus Finn Balor versus Chad Gable. Gunther is currently feuding for the world title on SmackDown. I don't think he's gonna get it, so I think come Mania next year, him competing for the US title makes a lot of sense because it's a title he hasn't won yet, and I don't look at that as a step down for Gunther. It's just something different to do. Now, I would love this match to just be Gunther versus Ilya one-on-one, especially given their NXT history, but let's be honest, that match is not big enough for WrestleMania, so you have to add some other players to it. Finn Balor's on SmackDown. I would love to see him included into this as well. And then you have Chad Gable, who is so over following his AAA match against El Grande Americano. I think Chad Gable should absolutely move over to SmackDown at some point this year, and then we kind of get that Gunther versus Chad Gable match that we wanted to happen at WrestleMania 40. From an in-ring standpoint, this would be the best match of the show. These four guys are all in-ring technicians. Dave Meltzer would give this like 7 out of 5 stars. In terms of who wins, I would like it to be Chad Gable, but it doesn't matter. This is just a solid mid-card match. Next up, I have Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair. Now, yes, Bianca Belair is currently pregnant, but actually when you think about it, Becky Lynch returned to in-ring action like 8 months after she had a baby. So theoretically, there is a chance that Bianca comes back for next year's Mania. And if she does, you have to do the match with Jade Cargill. Ideally, I would love this match to be for a world title, but that's probably not going to happen, at least at next year's Mania. The match could be for the US title, but I don't know. I feel like it makes more sense to just do it one-on-one, nothing on the line. Bianca versus Jade, the dream match we've been wanting for years. If Bianca comes back in time, I think this is the match that you do. If she doesn't, I don't know what else Jade Cargill does. And obviously, Bianca wins. Next up, I am punishing Randy Orton for the lackluster performance he gave at WrestleMania this past year. Honestly, after that show, I don't see Randy Orton competing in the main event of WrestleMania ever again. So I think next year at Mania, he's just going to be in a one-off, non-title match just in the mid-card. And I think there are two potential potential opponents for him. One is more practical and one is more interesting. The more practical option is Trick Williams. I don't think Trick Williams is going to be involved in the US title scene for a full year. I think once he loses it, he'll go off to face someone else at WrestleMania, and I think Randy Orton is a perfect person for him to beat. However, the more interesting name is Kevin Owens. If Kevin Owens returns in time for Mania next year, we can get the match that we were supposed to get at WrestleMania 41. Only this time the roles are reversed. Kevin Owens is the babyface and Randy Orton is the heel. To me, that is way more interesting, but if Kevin Owens isn't back in time, then I think you do Randy versus Trick. And if Kevin Owens is back in time and you need somewhere to put Trick, I would just throw him in the US match as well. Either way though, I think Randy loses. Next up, I have another non-title match for the women's division, and that is Charlotte Flair versus Alexa Bliss. This is something that I thought we would have already gotten by now, but WWE clearly loves this partnership. The fans love it too. However, I do feel like come Mania next year, we might decide to pull the plug. And I think Charlotte Flair absolutely has to stay a babyface. I think it's Alexa Bliss who needs to turn heel, just because her character has been a bit flat. So I think at some point you have Alexa Bliss turn on Charlotte Flair, cost her a big title match maybe, and then at WrestleMania you tell the story of this friendship basically crumbling. Charlotte Flair versus Alexa Bliss, and makes a lot of sense. I think Charlotte gets the win, and then after, both of them can go off to do something else. Next up, because WrestleMania next year is going to be in Saudi Arabia, you know Sami Zayn has to be on the card, but he is a heel. Now Sami Zayn is a heel right now. He probably will be a heel come Saudi Mania, but the trick is you need an opponent for him to face where the crowd still boos Sami Zayn, and I think there's one guy on the roster who definitely fits that bill, and that is Danhausen. If you don't think Danhausen is going to have a WrestleMania match, you're kidding yourself. The dude is so over, his merch sells so well, he's one of the biggest stars in the company. So I think you can absolutely do Sami Zayn versus Danhausen at WrestleMania. However, this is WrestleMania, you're gonna wanna add some celebrity involvement, because again, in this TKO era, you're gonna get it. So I actually have this being a tag match. Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre versus Danhausen and a mystery partner. Once Drew McIntyre returns, he's gonna need something else to do, something different, because let's be honest, his character has been a bit stale recently, and I think him teaming with Sami Zayn is a perfect choice. The two of them have a lot of history. I think they would make for a fun pairing, so come Mania next year, I think they team up, challenge Danhausen in a fun celebrity match. But who is Danhausen's partner gonna be? It could be anyone. Honestly, I don't know. It could be Jelly Roll, it could be IShowSpeed, it could be Mr. Beast. I don't know who it's gonna be, but you absolutely know that there's going to be some celebrity involved in a match at WrestleMania, so I say why not have it just be here? And of course, Danhausen would probably win. And in the main event of night 2 for the WWE Undisputed Championship, I got Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk. Similar to Roman versus Seth, this was a match that was talked about for WrestleMania this past year, but due to injuries and things changing, this match ended up not happening. But on the Raw after WrestleMania 42, WWE deliberately teased this with Punk and Cody cutting a little promo in the ring together. So I think come Saudi Mania, this is going to be your night 2 main event. I think CM Punk wins either the Rumble or the Chamber to challenge Cody Rhodes for the title. And let's be honest, this is probably going to be CM Punk's final WrestleMania main event. I'm not saying he's gonna retire soon after, but I don't see any other giant marquee opponents for CM Punk to main event WrestleMania with. So I think this is the night 2 main event, the match we've been teasing for years ever since Punk returned to WWE. And honestly, I feel like Cody Rhodes wins, as boring as it is. Just because at the end of the day, similar to Punk versus Roman, Cody is technically the younger superstar. He's the one who has more to gain here. But that's it. Those are my predictions for every match of WrestleMania 43. Let me know your predictions down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.